to introduce my friend and colleague here at Cyber Houston, Andy Sawyer, on operational cybersecurity for the Houston region, sponsored by Blue Lens. Andy's Chief of Security Facilities for Locke LLP. Andy, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here. I know you do a lot of work with attorneys around security and how you manage that. It's a culture. I do a lot of that with physicians, so we have a shared brotherhood there.
Exactly.
But Andy, thanks for doing this. I will hand the stage over to you to introduce the rest of your panel.
Yeah, thanks, Phill, and good to see you. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about this really important topic. How do we actually operationalize cybersecurity? What are the nuts and bolts of it? What does it look like when you actually have a program going? I'm going to introduce my panel over the next 45 minutes with us about cybersecurity and how what programs are in place and what we can do with that. So Mel has got a great title. He's the Manager of Identity and Access Management and SAP Security at CenterPoint. And somebody was talking earlier about child labor. Mel has been with CenterPoint for 39 years, so he was probably 3 when he started.
Thank you, Andy.
But his responsibilities include identity and access management for the organization, SAP security, and oversight of CenterPoint's cyber incident response plan and IT auditing. So not much going on with Mel there. And then secondly, I'd like to introduce Jesse Carrillo, who is the Senior Vice President and CIO with Hines, a global commercial and real estate investment, development, and management firm that operates in 27 countries and over 200 cities. Jesse has been with Hines for 26 years, and prior to taking on the lead role with Hines as SVP and CIO, he headed up the application development team. Lastly, I'd like to introduce Jason Haward-Grau, who is an advisory managing director with KPMG LLP's Houston Consulting Cybersecurity Services Practice Group. Jason is based in Houston. His focus is on the energy industry. And welcome, Jason. If you're coming on, Jesse's saying no.
Nope, I think we scared him off. So looks, based on the message we're getting, it looks like he's running a little late. So I think we're going to get started.
The 3 of us I think we can fill in. I think we can.
Yeah, I think we'll if Jesse jumps in, we'll certainly.
I just turn sideways when I'm Jason this way and I'm Jesse this way. How's that?
There you go.
That's great, Jesse. Very flexible as always. So, I think cybersecurity is really top of mind for everyone. I can't think of a time when we had the President of the United States talking about cybersecurity, talking about zero trust security, talking about ransomware, talking about how to operationalize cybersecurity for the defense of the nation and our economy. It's a critical age that we live in. Cybersecurity has the focus, and really our nation, and as the president said, our economy depends on good cybersecurity programs and practices and hygiene. So let's talk about how do we give some information to this audience about how they operationalize cybersecurity at their companies. And I'm going to put a plug in at the end for our assessment tool as a really good yardstick. But let's begin with Mel. What are you doing, and what is the current maturity state of cybersecurity at CenterPoint in the age of COVID? What have you seen change in the last 18 months?
Good morning. Thank you. First of all, I want to really a shout out to Amanda and the presentation she put together. I think that was fabulous.
Most definitely.
Covered lots of areas that I think we're all going to touch and that hits home with all of us. So Amanda, hats off to you. Thank you very much. One of the things that we worked on through the years is trying to assess your environment. Where are you? What's your maturity model? How much is your company willing to put at risk, how much you're willing to spend. You go ahead and look at how much of the cybersecurity budget has been allocated. I mean, the IT budget has been allocated to the cybersecurity. And, in the past, it was 2 to 3%. Now we're seeing 10 to 15% of that being allocated because of the rise of the things that we're all talking about, right? So the first thing is look at your maturity model. In the past, I think it was probably, we're pretty happy we're starting to look at sourcing some things to some third world countries at some point, but then now after COVID, you got to sit back and rethink those things again. Let's look at that. When the whole working from home, okay, what does that mean? Does that mean that the guy's going to be over at his house over in another country with my data, with my information, with no controls in place? Go back to what Amanda talked about. Look at your contracts. Let's go back and revisit them. Tell them, hey, if you guys are going to want to support us, you can't be working out of a house. You can't be working. We want our data in a safe place. We want controls in place. We want to be able to make sure that that's going to take care of our data when it's at the different places. So those are some of the things that we're looking at, we're thinking about. Also, make sure you go back and look at your plan, your cybersecurity response plan. Are the things in place to cover those situations where now you've got remote users, where you've got remote people? How are you going to manage that? What happens if you're out of your network and you've got to pull up a quick conference call and your network's down? Those kind of things need to be considered because you're not in the office anymore. You're all spread out. So I'm going to stop there and just kind of open it up for conversation, because that's kind of where we're all thinking. It's a different world. You need to rethink where you're at, where your maturity is. And
sure. Absolutely. So, Jesse, what about Hines? What are you all doing differently in the age of COVID, or from what we used to call the before time up until now? How have your practices changed? Welcome, Jason.
And again, in commercial real estate. Hey, Jason, welcome.
Good morning, all. Apologies for my time. It's another fun day at the farm.
I've already answered 2 questions for you, so you're all set.
You're good. You're good.
I owe you again, Jesse.
No, so Andy, good. So again, for us, being commercial real estate and being in 27 countries, even before COVID, we had to be thinking about global security and traveling employees and how do we secure them. So for us, work from home really was work from anywhere before COVID, right? And so I think we were already having to do that from what I call the back office team members. But our also challenge is at the buildings, right? We have building control systems. We have a lot of IoT in our buildings. And so we've been kind of protecting that. I say for COVID, I think the thing that really helped us is when we started doing a lot of cybersecurity programs here at Hines, we really try to make it personal. So when we would have security awareness, we would have tools in place. We'd say, okay, this is what you do at Hines, but also, hey, take it home. This is the way you want to protect your family and your children and your assets at home as well. And so I think having that personal attention got folks in the mindset of I need to protect myself at home and protect myself at the office. And it became one and the same in their minds, right? And so I think for us, the big focus was, and we call it consumerize it, but really make it personal. And so then when folks went to this work from home situation, they already had that in the mindset. They already knew what to do at home. They knew that they weren't supposed to have, if you're working legal or in the funds, don't have papers sitting out there on your desk where your spouse or your kids can go read, right? I mean, you don't do that at the office. And so, shredding documents, making sure that they're secured even at home. And so I think for us is, again, making it very personal really helped us get into this situation. And then as we come back and forth, again, our property management engineering teams never really left the buildings, right? They're essential personnel, just like Mel and a lot of his team, were probably essential personnel for CenterPoint. And so we, coming back and forth, the things we focused on more is, we used to have a lot of mobile users. Now pretty much almost everybody in the firm is mobile. So again, we're trying to teach folks how to be mobile. One of the things that we always worry about in the cyber front is lost equipment. Somebody stole a laptop, somebody lost a laptop. Well, when you're a road warrior, you're used to carrying a laptop and you're used to putting in your car, you're used to going through airports. When you ask someone to be mobile and they're not used to being mobile, those are the danger zones, right? Because all of a sudden they're the ones that aren't paying attention as much as someone who's used to it. So those are the things we really focused on as people started going back and forth more in in a future hybrid type mode. And I'll stop there.
Okay. Thanks, Jesse. I would share just a little bit about what we as a law firm are doing differently in 2021 and where we're going as well. I want to start by saying that I'm very fortunate that our firm leadership prioritizes and communicates the importance of cybersecurity, and that was well before COVID started. It has been top of mind for the entire career that I've been with Locke. And the real key that we place on the firm is empowering our attorneys and team members with security awareness training and cyber hygiene skills, and letting them know that, whether the virus of the day is ransomware or data exfiltration or business email compromise, really the power is with the individual to provide cybersecurity for the firm and for our clients. And we've implemented a lot of new technology over the last 18 months to facilitate frictionless collaboration with each other and with our clients, and to provide application access from any device, anywhere, anytime. We continue moving forward aggressively with our long-term zero trust security strategy, and we can talk about zero trust during this conversation without making the assumption that everybody knows what that actually is. But that's a key initiative that we developed pre-COVID that we continue moving forward with. And again, we're focused on enabling the human firewall to protect client and firm information. Cyber hygiene, security awareness, never more important than what it is today, with a disparate workforce and what used to be thousands of data points to protect becoming multiples of thousands of data points to protect. Jason, anything that you'd like to share on this topic?
Yeah, no, I love it. Andy, you're preaching to the choir and to the converted from my perspective. One of the things that we've seen time and time again over the last 18 months and change, and because the change is gathering pace, is significantly the fact that it's no longer the case that you have a security team who are worrying about cybersecurity. It's no longer the case that it's just one person or a team of 50, 100, whatever it is. And we're seeing it across the board with a number of our clients. We don't have a team of 100. We have a team of however many thousand people actually work in the organization. We've shifted away from, well, it's cybersecurity's job to protect us to it's everyone's job to protect us. And actually that also is now starting to push into the supply chain space. We're seeing, the reliance that we had on our third parties has become much more significant over the course of the last couple of years with SolarWinds and other bits and pieces. A slight pivot, I grant you. It's definitely becoming something more and more of a concern for organizations because we're no longer relying on third parties. It's probably fourth and fifth parties. None of us, thought about the implications of having to secure X number of thousand homes when this all started. A lot of our clients didn't have a VPN infrastructure that was scalable to handle the number of remote connections that they suddenly got asked to do. So everyone was scrambling around trying to figure it out. And what we've also seen is a real fast shift into cloud adoption, which, whilst being a brilliant thing, has its drawbacks if it's not defined with security in mind. And we've seen that time and time again. A number of our clients over the course of the last 18 months, 2 years, have fallen foul of ransomware attacks in cloud environments or hybrid environments because you've now got the best or the worst of both worlds. So we're definitely seeing a lot more of the how do we secure more effectively, and how do we as organizations ensure that we're preaching to everybody that everyone's part of the security team.
Right. So Jason, you touched on it a little bit. Let me just ask you if you can take a little bit deeper dive into how you manage your third parties, what your review process is like, and how you move forward with that. Yeah, no,
it's a great question. And I think it's something that we're all worrying about, if I'm brutally honest. There isn't a client I'm talking to, and good to see Jesse nodding because he and I know about the challenge in this space. We're all concerned, especially post SolarWinds, that the way that bad actors are now playing, if we've tightened our defenses, which we have, and most of us are getting better at keeping those, that continuum and the constant Hawaiian wave of challenge of staying defended, they need to find another avenue to get in. And those avenues are largely coming through third parties because third parties are, trusted. We want them to be in our environments. We want them to do things, especially places like SolarWinds, where you've got a significant footprint in a number of our customer landscapes. So what we're seeing is kind of a couple of things. and it's turn it into tangible action. If you haven't yet, you need to start asking your suppliers questions around how are they protecting themselves and how are they going to support protecting you, and what are the relationships that you have and the connections that you have in the event something happens. A lot of our clients are literally starting that manual process right now of, and we all used to do it. Okay, it's been 3 years since we spoke to company X. It's time to do procurement. Are going to do a review, and procurement don't know what cybersecurity is. So we'll just pick up the same contract and we'll renew it and we'll just take 10% off the price, right? That's how it works. Well, no, that's not how it works anymore. The world's changed, guys. So we're educating procurement teams now far more effectively and shifting away from we'll just do standard terms to now we need to look at cybersecurity. We need to incorporate that actually into our review processes. And that in itself is not enough. We're now seeing organizations start to say, well, how do I know if you guys are going to tell me if you've had an attack? What constitutes what you need to tell me? So how do I define that? And then shifting away from how do I make this a manual process that happens once every 3 or 4 years to how do I continuously understand the attack surface around me through my supply base? So we've got organizations that we're working with right now who are literally starting to say, I want to understand how to move away from this passive 3-year cycle to, if somebody has a chatter on the dark web about a supplier of mine, I know about it. I'm informed. I'm able to make some strategic decisions about which suppliers I'm going to work with because of what they do. I mean, we're seeing it across the board. Hopefully that kind of gives you some insight into what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
That's great. So thank you for that, Jason. So Jesse, let me shift to you and ask you a little bit of a different question. I noted in your introduction that you have you're in 27 countries and 200 offices or 200 cities in 27 countries. You're literally all over the planet, and were before COVID. So how do you, I know you've got programs and systems in place that have geotagging and sensors that detect where people are working and why, and what the norm is and what the anomalies are. Can you talk a little bit about what Hines does to manage the identities of individuals and strike a balance with the privacy of those individuals?
Yeah. No, I mean, and again, I'm just going to latch on something that Jason just said just a minute ago on the third party, because I think that is, as we saw with recent breaches, that is probably the one biggest things that keep us up late at night, right? Because if you look at commercial real estate, we have vendors that are small, medium, and large, really large vendors, and so how do you create programs that accommodate the budgets and the staff of all those? So yeah, it definitely is around creating a more solid vendor third party program where you're actually keeping up with them and complying with the annual check-ins or the 3-year check-ins, and not just having to check the box. We're actually doing it, and I think, I'm guilty. We're all guilty of, historically, that's all we did, right? We just checked the box, but you just can't do that anymore. It's too risky for you not to really be more in tune with what your partners are doing. And that latches into your question. I think for us, we have such a dependency. My team is not a big team, so we can't have IT team members and cybersecurity members all over 27 countries, right? So we are very dependent on our suppliers, our partners, our vendors out there to work with the properties, work with our big hubs to protect those endpoints. I think for the big interesting thing that is okay, in our arsenal, right, as cyber experts, we have tools that can help track. It's kind of like Find My Phone on an iPhone, right? And I think Android has something similar, but we do have tools on our laptops, on our endpoints that we can track them, because we need to be able to track them for stolen devices. What happens if data gets pulled from a device? You want to know where it was pulled, and so you need to have these tools on our laptops. And I think the challenge is in today's world is Big Brother, right? Big Brother's watching. How do you balance that people don't want to be monitored. They don't want to know that they're traveling in certain places. But from a cyber standpoint, you have to know. It's like part of our job. And so we spend a lot of time on education around why we have to put these tools in place, why we have to really know where the device is. I always say, I don't care where you are, but I need to know where the device is, right? And so, if it's in a cab somewhere and it's driving somewhere, I need to know where it is, right? So I think it is the continual conversation and dialogue as to why you're doing this, and then for us, it's partnering with the HR teams at Hines, partnering with the leadership teams at Hines, just so that you do have some buy-in around some of these tools that we're having to implement. Because again, if the company's asking us to protect them and they're challenging us to protect them, then there are certain things that we need to do that maybe make people uncomfortable, but it's part of our jobs. And so just again, it's the constant communication, collaboration with the respective teams. I think that makes it doable. And then I think Umesh just said something here, but I think for us, I was going to land into that is with 27 countries and different privacy laws, different regulatory laws. We've got teams in compliance and teams in legal working with my team that are constantly keeping an eye on those things and making sure that we're in compliance of all the different regulations out there. And so it's getting tougher and tougher. I think what we're seeing is a merging of cybersecurity, legal, compliance, risk, audit. I mean, it's all morphing into one giant, cybersecurity ball that maybe is no longer going to be just IT. It is going to be an entire cybersecurity business program within our respective firms and moving away from just the technology.
Right. And let me just ask Mel if you want to share some of what you're doing and what you're seeing just with regard to remote access and third parties and keeping track of people and knowing with confidence that the right people have access and the wrong people don't.
Absolutely. Thank you. A couple of things, right? You just think back of some of the operational things that we've done and are maturing, and we always did it internally. Now we're pushing it out. Single sign-on. You start looking at that. You start looking at multi-factor authentication. We implemented a PAM solution that says, hey, if you come in and get one of our administrator passwords, you've got to be trusted. You have to be those. And what we did find out was kind of a side story was we found out people were sharing passwords, right? Sharing accounts. Now this forces them to come in and get individual. And, they're just some of the good things that happen from a bad thing, right? So if you start implementing those kind of things that help us monitor, and Jesse hit it a few times, manage those environments, you can come back and start to figure out how to tighten it all up. So those are some of the things we all need to keep in mind. The data loss prevention tools that are out there also help keep an eye on where the data is going, what's leaving. We've got some policies in place that doesn't let you copy something from your cell phone and paste it to anywhere. So those are great things that allow, because everybody's got a cell phone now. Everybody's got that data in their hand. And guess what?
Right.
Now they can't even copy and move it anywhere because those policies are in place. So those are some of the things that we just kind of think about internally, but now we've got to extend it to our third parties, to our trusted vendors and others out there. So thank you, Andy. Great segue from Jesse to allow me to talk to that from a CenterPoint perspective.
Sure. And let me just kind of mention one thing that I know we're doing as a law firm, and I'm sure everybody else in this meeting is doing as well, just with regard to single sign-on and user identity management. The promise and the benefit to our attorneys and team members is that we're moving to a passwordless system. Because who wants to keep track of 125 passwords? So as we move to leverage behavioral analytics more effectively, knowing who you are, where you are, still striking the balance with privacy concerns, obviously, the real benefit is that you become more productive, you become more mobile, and you are able to work without having to focus on the IT part of it. So there's the challenges that we have faced over the last 18 months have ended up, I think, making us better and making us in a better position to provide better technology and more secure technology to our clients. And our clients can be real clients of the law firm, but internal clients, team members, other staff at the firms where we work. So let's shift a little bit and talk about why cybersecurity is so much top of mind for everybody right now. I'm going to use the R word, ransomware, because everybody thinks that's the working crisis of the day, and clearly it is the second global pandemic. In our time. And if just anybody who would like to take this one, why is that? Why is ransomware up? Ransomware in June, week over week, was up 1,000% in 2021 over 2020. There were 1,000% more ransomware attacks week by week in June of this year than in June of 2020. Why is that? Anybody?
So I can probably start with that one, and then I'll definitely throw it over to my friends to give a sense of what they think. I think the first and foremost thing is it's a cycle of growth. Let's indicate that we've seen ransomware be propagated throughout the media. It's a very simple thing to talk about. It's visibly successful. Castle Magalit, when they got hit, they actually conducted a negotiation in public. It's an insane thing to do in some respects, but they did. They negotiated with the ransomware vendor in public, which makes it more interesting when you start seeing large numbers. That's the first thing, which is it's seen to be successful and it's evolving. The second thing I think, which is probably worth bearing in mind, we did some research within KPMG recently, and it's just kind of side research through some of our colleagues that touch the dark web. The average cost and barrier of entry has gone down exponentially. If you go back 5 or 6 years ago, great question, Roger. Is it a growing business? Absolutely. It's a business model that unfortunately works. You ransom people that if it didn't work, people wouldn't be seeing the exponential growth in it, if I'm brutally honest. And we'll talk a little bit about what you can do about it, maybe in a minute or two, because I think that's probably part of the question. But what we're seeing is that the barriers to entry have gone down. 5 or 6 years ago, in order to launch a complicated attack that would require everything from reconnaissance right the way through to actually deploying a payload and then detonating it, required skill. It required the ability to actually program and do. There is no need for that anymore. The kits are pretty much self-serving. You can launch them without any real effort. And the danger is that obviously anybody and their granddad and their wife can now hop on and have a go at ransomware. So it's pervasive, it's accessible. That's part of the challenge. But it's demonstrating more concerning to my mind the trend that we always thought we were going to get attacked. If you go back 5 or 6 years ago, the darling of the world that we were dealing with was DDoS. We were all worried about, oh my God, our online presence is going to get knocked offline. They're going to DDoS us. That still happens, by the way. DDoSes still occur, but they're not interesting. No one's interested. You're interested in, what's happening with ransomware. And what we're seeing is the evolution has also changed. Ransomware started out, if you go back to things like WannaCry and NotPetya, which are more my concern from an operational technology standpoint, but they existed to make life difficult for people. What we're now seeing is that the evolution has shifted. So we'll try and exfiltrate your data. The ransomware, the bad actors are far smarter now. I heard this yesterday. They're far smarter than they were. They actually do reconnaissance, not just of your environment, but of your balance sheet. They'll know how much money you've got, what your last 10K looked like, and what you actually submitted as free cash flow. So they know what you've got to actually potentially spend on a ransom. That's the next thing. And the third thing is that they also now take the initiative to reach out to your customers. And they will tell your customers, hey, we have just ransomware X. They're not paying. We've got your data. You might want to encourage them to pay. So what we're seeing is a significantly pervasive crowdsourced approach almost to a degree where you've got bad actors who have become far smarter and far more capable. That's my 10 pence and why it's grown so much. Jesse, Mel, I'll welcome your thoughts and input.
Let me just, I think that's great. One of the things that I will, very near and dear to my heart is being prepared in the event you are attacked.
That's the one.
So I will just say briefly, practice, go through, one of the scenarios that I always say is, somebody's asking you for $1 million for ransom. What do you do? Pick up and call the Treasury Department and say, cut me a check for $1 million. That doesn't happen, right? So there's other ways you've got to go through and make sure your executives are prepared in the event this happens. What actions are you going to take? The FBI is going to come in and say, no, we don't pay that. Let's do this. Or, so those are the things you need to build into your plan. Do a tabletop exercise, run through that scenario, come back and understand who the players are. Hire a third party to come help you in the event of a breach. That's another thing that you can do as well. So those are just recommendations that we come back and because we practice it, we raise those questions and we're prepared. We're aware of the different avenues that a ransom attack could take your company.
And Mel, I'm going to jump on that super quickly before I hand over to Jesse, because you raised two super wonderful points. First and foremost, preparation is everything, because you will be attacked. I totally agree with you. And you'll be amazed the number of organizations that don't have a cyber response capability lined up. So KPMG does it. I'll give you a great example. Here we are. We do it. We've supported thousands of clients over the last couple of years in responding to getting the bad guys out of the environment as quickly as possible, helping you figure out how quickly to recover, because recovery is everything. If you plan it properly, you'll have a bad day. Guarantee it. It's a question of when it happens. And to your point, Mel, if you've tested it and you understand what your playbook looks like and what execs need to do and how to deal with the things like legal privilege and what happens in that respect and how to engage your IT team efficiently and recognize that your IT team are probably going to be overwhelmed in 14 days. And what are you going to do to augment that team? Because they might be 30, 60, 100 people, whatever it is, but they're not going to have the hands and feet to fix it. Have you thought about backups? It's amazing the things. 15 years ago, I was worried about backups from a completely different standpoint. And to your point, Mel, if you've got good backups that are secure, and I use that word super advisedly, because the bad actors will go after them. They know that if you've got backups, you can recover and you're not going to pay the ransom. So they'll try and exfiltrate your data. So logically, you're right. Do a tabletop exercise. Get a cyber retainer in place. They don't cost anything for you to do it. And the third one, which I'll add just for good fun and good measure, then I'm going to throw it over to Jesse because he's probably going to throw something at me in a minute. Cyber insurance is not something just for fun. A lot of organizations still don't understand that they should be looking at cyber insurance as a mechanism to support them. It's just another business risk these days. The kind of however to it is recognize that cyber insurance is now requiring far more diligent responses, which is a good way of having a dialogue with your board to say, guys, listen, we're going to need to get cyber insurance in place. In order to do that, there are going to be certain table stakes that the cyber insurance companies are going to expect us to do. So we need to do them and have those conversations. All right, I'm going to hush up and hand it over to Jesse because I think I've taken up all the oxygen in the room.
No. Hey, Jason, you always have awesome things to say, you and Mel and Andy. But so just a few follow-ups. I think I love the question about the business because when you said R, I think you said the R, I was thinking ROI, right? Because ransomware has a strong ROI if you think in business terms. And so I think going back to what Mel said about tabletop and preparedness, I start to look at it as ransomware is a business and as a competitor, like a competitor to Hines in commercial real estate. So how do I treat ransomware bad actors as a business? Put yourself in that mindset. What would they do? How would they think? How would they get more cash flow? Where they spend the money? Where they spend their time? How do you negotiate with them, right? Because again, I think what I've started to see around ransomware specifically is historically the answer was you don't negotiate, you don't pay, you don't do that. But now I've seen a lot more incidents where it's better just to pay, get your stuff back, because the alternative of downtime, business interruptions is just so great that you'd rather just pay the negotiated amount. And I think, Jason, you said is they know how much we can afford, how much a business can afford, and they're going to start there and then know that you're going to negotiate. So it's become a business. And so treat it like a business as you're creating your tabletop exercises, as you're creating your preparation plans. Treat it like any other business, because that's what it is now. So I love that. I think from a cyber insurance, agreed. You look at cyber insurance, get yourself a policy. The only concern I have with cyber insurance that I'm starting to see in some trends is because of what's happening with ransomware. Insurance companies are in it to make money and be profitable, and their rates are just going through the roof, right? And so will we get a tipping point where you end up being in a situation where you're better off being self-insured versus getting cyber insurance because the rates are just going tremendously higher and higher every year? So I think those are the things that, as a CISO or as a CIO, as you're thinking about cyber insurance, look at amounts, but also look at, is it time for you to maybe self-insure, bring it in-house as opposed to do the easy answer? So those are things I'll say right now.
No, great points, Jerry. Jesse, from my perspective, I'd question it too. And you put both you and Mel said exactly the same thing, which is, look, guys, it's a business discussion. It's no longer a security discussion. It's a business discussion, whether you opt to do cyber insurance, depending on the size and scale of your organization, how much you choose to self-insure to. My last life, we self-insured to circa 50 million. That was our choice as an organization because we were prepared to carry that on our books. Materially, every organization is different. And you're right, the rates are going up. But what I'm also seeing is that those organizations that are more prepared and have demonstrable plans in place are actually getting a lower and more favorable rate from the insurance companies because they're demonstrating they're being proactive. It's no different to anything else. And I'd add one last one, just, and then Andy, I promise to hand it back. It's my day for chatting. What can I say? It's Wednesday. It's an exciting day. Come on, let's have some fun with it.
Sure. That's right.
You know, everyone's listening to us, so let's give them the benefit of it. In third point, and I think which is kind of where I was going with all of this. When you talk about this as a business-based decision and it's a business-based discussion, if you have your protection in place and you've got your plan designed, recognize it's not going to work 100% because they evolve faster than we do. So we're always going to play catch up. But having those preparatory conversations, as Mel says up front, doing the tabletop exercise, you'd be amazed the number of boards that we meet with on a regular basis that have never had a real ransomware event. So when I talk about it in a kind of real sense, if you're doing a tabletop exercise, make it real. If someone says, I can do a recovery of a system in 24 hours, go away and go test it beforehand. I did this recently. The CIO was very confident. Our book says that we can respond in 24 hours, so we're good. And I said, well, that's really interesting. We did a little bit of a snapshot with you, and it took 6 weeks because you had to recover from a tape backup, and then you had to recover from the tape backup into an operational environment that didn't operate the way it did before because the configurations have changed. So you're going to have to manually load all those configurations and go line by line. Now, that was a shock because suddenly what was supposed to be a day or two based event because we got backups became something far worse. And then they had to think about what they're going to do, because this is the other part of the equation. Think about what you as an organization need to do differently going forward. So taking the output of a tabletop and actually turning it into an action plan that you can do something with is crucially important, in my humble opinion. And on that note, Andy,
So Jason, we're going to run out of time here pretty quick, and we do want to give some time for the audience. But let me kind of wrap up this great discussion on ransomware. And I think to summarize some of the things that were said and maybe put in a little bit more context here as well, ransomware is really the manifestation of the cyber event. It's not the thing that happens first. It's the thing that happens last in the event, as Jason said before. And I think on TV we see, oh, I clicked the link and my computer locks up. That's really not what happens. What happens is you click the link, they get in, they start to dig around, they do their reconnaissance, they exfiltrate your data. Then they let you know they're there by locking up your computer and saying, oh, and you should go ahead and pay us now, or we're going to start publishing your data. So I want to kind of wrap up and then open it up for questions with what I saw Umesh flash across the screen here a little bit ago. Prior preparedness prevents poor performance. We want to prepare in advance. And I'm going to give a nod to what we've done at Cyber Houston in the way of our assessment tool. So if you have an opportunity, I wanted to share it at the end so you would still get to see us for the 45 minutes and not go dial off somewhere on Google and look for this. But please go to assess.cyberhouston.org. Great measuring stick, great opportunity for you to develop your own game plan if you don't already have one, or measure our game plan against yours. Prior preparedness prevents poor performance. And that's what it's all about. We're all in this together, and each of us makes all of us better. And with that, Phill, I see you jumped in here, so.
Phill, you're on mute.
Thank you. That's better. Hey, thanks, Andy, Mel, Jesse, Jason, great presentation and panel. I wanted to make sure, even in the last 5 minutes, that we got to all the audience questions. There was quite a few in there. So maybe our team in the background can pop those up.
While we're waiting for that, I wanted to make 2 points real quick, just to help everybody think about this. Go out, assess your environment, and pick a framework. Build a plan around it. I'll leave it with that.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. That's better. Hey, thanks, Andy, Mel, Jesse, Jason, great presentation and panel. I wanted to make sure, even in the last 5 minutes, that we got to all the audience questions. There was quite a few in there. So maybe our team in the background can pop those up.
While we're waiting for that, I wanted to make 2 points real quick, just to help everybody think about this. Go out, assess your environment, and pick a framework, build a plan around it. I'll leave it with that.
Yep. Thank you, Bill.
Just a question from Roger. Does cryptocurrency influence a greater number of attacks?
Oh, that's a really good question.
I think the obvious answer is yes, because the
Just makes
sense
it
is
easy.
that there's,
It does. Yeah.
Makes it
Yeah.
easy.
yeah,
It does.
it's the sense is there's some anonymity. The criminals are rarely caught, right? The FBI has caught a few, and that's great. That's a good story to tell, and we hope that becomes the norm.
Great. Yeah.
Awesome. From Peter, we see a lot of news about tokenization as a process of replacing sensitive data with unique identification symbols. Could the panel comment on this topic and discuss adoption?
I don't know enough about it to talk about it, so I'm gonna remain silent.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember the word. There's a fancy word for it that we just got a contract from another country that was talking about this. It's the idea that in your databases, in your systems, you replace any PII or any private information with symbols and letters. And so it's kind of like the hash, the old programmer hash that you do with all your data. And so I think it's something that's becoming more and more looked at by, especially from foreign countries. And so I think we're going to start to see more of that, where we're going to have to ask our vendors, our partners to make this part of their applications or systems, where anybody just looking at a database or a table or data that has PI information, it's like today when you hide all the digits except the last 4 digits of the social security number. I think you're going to see a lot more of that because we're being pushed by a lot of countries.
Yeah.
Okay, we're about 4 questions behind, Phill.
Yeah. Well,
Let me talk a little bit about the exercise
for the
question.
purple.
On purple. Well, I think that the important thing is that you should be able to control how you want the outcome of that exercise to play out. You take it to whatever level you need to take it. What I do warn people, and I've done many of these, is to be careful not to scenario yourself to death. Don't allow those people go down the wrong path, or come back and tell you, oh, that can't happen to us, because that'll always happen. You want to play it out. You want to let it run, whether it's a red team versus a blue team, or however you want to do it. Play it out like you need to. There's several companies out there that can help you do it as well. And you want to make sure that you've got a strong person running the event to keep everybody within their lanes. That's the important thing. We made a mistake once and invited the executives in without briefing him, and it went down a bad path because we never got back on track and accomplished what we needed to. Good questions, just didn't keep it in control.
Let me just say this real briefly about the tabletop exercises as well. This is not an IT exercise. This is a business exercise. So if you're just doing a tabletop with your IT group to see, can they fail over to the other data center? Can they fail over to the other mail service? Can they do that? You're just missing it, right? The C-suite has to be involved. There has to be a C-suite exercise. Ask them the hard questions. We just had all of our data locked up, and they're threatening to exfiltrate it. And what do we do? Who's the person that speaks for the firm? This is a business exercise.
Yeah, in our plan, Andy, we contact legal in the event we have that starting to get that serious, right? After a certain level, legal's involved, and then we take direction from our legal team. And I think that's where you bring in all the business and all the different C-suites to understand what's going to happen. So,
assignment of privilege is what they normally call it, right? That's the immediate response. And the other thing to bear in mind, guys, is that it's all well and good to say I'm going to pay the ransom if that's what you choose to do, but there's no guarantees. I've had a client most recently who paid the ransom, even though it was not recommended, and I don't tend to recommend it because you're propagating criminal activities and enterprises. That's what it is. The decryption key was slower than recovery from backup, because guess what? The bad actors don't care about that half of the equation. They only care about the bit that they really want to get you to pay. Once you paid, it's not a big deal to them. Right. So just bear it in mind.
One last question, Andy. You'd mentioned what the work you were doing to get rid of passwords, and you go in making it easy for employees to use or not have to use password. I think that's great. But a comment came back was, as part of MFA, you really can't get rid of those. But can you remove employee managed passwords?
Well, I think you certainly have to have password policies in place that you enforce on the employee side. I think the most popular password in the country used to be password. I think we've moved beyond that. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is still pretty popular out there.
We just added password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in just to make it longer.
Yeah, because we heard that moving from, the longer passwords were better. So we went from 1 through 6 to 1 through 8. Yeah, definitely. I think at some point you've got to have a key password or a master password, but enforcing a password policy. And I have within my firm made password a bad word. I don't use the word password within the firm. I use passphrase, and just reinforce the policy that phrases have power, phrases have strength, and any password. If you think of a complex password, the guy that invented that in 2002 came back and said it was a terrible idea. And we still use it today.
Microsoft chose recently to announce that they're not passwords are going to disappear, and I actually fully endorse the fact that we should be moving away from the concept of a structured password. It is not a word anymore, and there are more effective ways of gaining access to systems. But the key thing ultimately, I think, and it goes back to what Mel said, I think, a little bit earlier, was around recognizing the identity of who can and who can't access. And there are solutions out there that will help you do that.
Yep.
Looking for the logical thing of, and it touches on behavior. If you look at behavior analytics, does Mel log in every day from the same place? And suddenly Mel's logging in from China? Really? Is Mel on a business trip? Did we know about that? Not saying that he would, but there's a nature and a natural kind of, the tools and technologies have evolved beyond the basic block of a password. I think
exactly. Behavioral analytics is the way to move away from the password, and I do think that day is here.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Thank you, guys. This is awesome. I don't keep us on time.